Hi, my name's Mr. Boff and I'm an English teacher at Lostock Hall Academy. We aren't going to be able to meet in person, unfortunately, and we're not going to be able to do our normal transition activities, but we still think it's really important that we get to know who you are in all of your rich complexity. That's why we've put together this Lostock Hall Academy Letters Dispatches to Your New Form Tutor video to launch this task with you and to give you a way of communicating with us so that we can find out who you are and how excited you are to start our school. Now, most of this can be completed at home. In fact, quite a lot of it probably will be completed at home. So I'm going to try and give you as much instruction and direction as I can to help you write your letter. Some of this might be familiar to you, some of it might be new, but hopefully you'll find it all pretty straightforward and self-explanatory. So we're going to start off with a fantastic quote, okay? You can read the quote for yourself. It's on the screen now. It's from a really famous poem by Walt Whitman called Song of Myself. And in this poem, it has a very famous line of poetry from American poetry about this idea that we contain multitudes. What does that mean? It means that all of us are complicated creatures. We like different things, we enjoy different activities, and sometimes we have aspects of our personality that perhaps not everyone sees right away. That's why I think this letters activity is going to be so fantastic for you. It's going to be an opportunity for you to write to your new form tutor for when you start at Lostock Hall Academy in Year 7 in September, fingers crossed. It's going to be an opportunity for you to tell us what makes you the complicated, interesting person that you are. And every single person who's joining in Year 7 will be complicated, interesting, different in some way. And we want to know what makes you, you. That's the purpose of this task. So you're going to be writing a letter to your new form tutor, and I understand that you are probably having one of the more difficult transitions in that you aren't completing Year 6 in the usual way due to the coronavirus, but we don't want to let that get in the way and stop you from having the good transition that you deserve. So we've put together this writing activity where you'll send a letter to your form tutor, and in fact they're going to be keeping your letter over time so you can look back on it, and you can think about the past, you can think about your experiences in the past, where you are now, your experience of lockdown. It'll give you an opportunity to reflect on that, and then also to think ahead to the future, to think ahead to a time hopefully post-coronavirus where you've completed your first year at Lostock Hall Academy, and make some plans, make some objectives that you hope maybe to achieve by the end of your first year at secondary school. So lots to think about and lots to work on. Now, as we're writing a letter, there are a couple of things that we need to remember about that, particularly in terms of who you're writing your letter to. So you're going to be writing it, directing it to your form tutor, and in all likelihood at primary school you won't have had a form tutor before. Now, your form tutor is someone you'll see every single morning at school. They'll register you first thing when you start the school day at secondary school. But they're much more than just someone who takes a register. They're there for pastoral support, they're there to give you some academic support, they're there as a shoulder to cry on, someone to celebrate all of your successes. They become really important. Now, I'm a form tutor and my Year 11 class, my Year 11 form have just left, and it's very difficult to put into words in many ways just how important that relationship between form tutor and tutor group is. You spend lots of time with this person, you see them every single day, and they're there throughout your school career. So it's a really important relationship, and perhaps most important in Year 7 when you're just starting. And understandably, quite a lot of students are excited, but they also have a number of concerns. So your letter will be to this form tutor, and you'll be explaining who you are, what you like, lots of other things too that I'll be covering in the video shortly. But that's who you're audiences, if we want to put it in those terms. Now, before we do any piece of writing, we obviously need to, as it says here, organise our thinking. And the way that we've thought you could organise your thinking is chronologically. So we've got 3 stimulus questions for you to be reflecting on here. The first is, where were you? So what's your experience of primary school been like? What have you really enjoyed about primary school? But perhaps what did you not enjoy as much? What were your achievements at primary school? What clubs and societies were you part of? Any sports teams? Those sorts of things. What about now? What about your experience of lockdown? We're living through an event that maybe happens once every 100 years. This is a world historic event. What's your experience of lockdown been? For many people it'll be challenging, but there will also be some positives, spending hopefully lots of time with loved ones. It's been a very complicated period to live through, and I think the letter will give you a really good chance to reflect and work through some of that. And then finally, where do you hope to be? Let's move outside of our current situation and think to the future. Think to the end of year 7. Picture yourself at the end of year 7. What do you hope to have achieved? Yes, you want to have made friends, but what other clubs and societies and groups do you hope to be part of at Lostock Hall Academy? What contribution do you hope to make to the wider academy community? What kind of academic success would you like to have seen at the end of your first year at Lostock Hall? So lots to think about, and I think this chronological organisation is perhaps the best way of approaching your letter. Now, we're going to be planning, and what I would recommend is that on this particular screen that you perhaps pause the video and then on your own or with a parent or carer actually answer these questions. I've tried to put together some questions that will prompt you to think. These questions aren't exhaustive. There are lots of ways of approaching this, and if you want to approach it in a different sort of way, we said that people are complicated. If you want to approach it in your own individual way, that's entirely up to you. That's absolutely fine. But some of the questions are things like, how have you adapted and dealt with lockdown? So for example, I've enjoyed being able to go out on daily walks and perhaps do more exercise than I was doing previously. At the same time, it's been difficult to be generally stuck inside and, unable really to see loved ones in the way that we might hope to. How have you tried to cope and adapt with that? How have you dealt with the difficulties of working on your schoolwork at home? That's been tough. But lots of people, lots of students have done some fantastic work anyway. Maybe it's forced you to become a little bit more independent in your schoolwork. And then think about your achievements. We've already spoken about it briefly. What do you hope to achieve in Lostock Hall Academy by the end of year 7? It's not just academic achievements, although that's really, really important. It's also friendship, it's social achievements, joining lots and lots of different clubs and groups that we offer at school. So lots to think about, okay? And as I say, this then, now and next structure, this kind of chronological structure, is a really good way of approaching and organising your letter. But as ever, if you've got a different idea, a different way of approaching it, you're that sort of person, that's absolutely fine. Just a quick reminder, you will have covered this, I'm sure, at primary school. You'll be really familiar with letter layouts, but just to jog your memory, there's just some information on this screen about how you can organise and lay out your letter. So don't forget that you need to include things like the date, and you need to include the correct salutation. You want to make a good first impression, and making sure that you've got the correct letter layout is a really important part of that. Again, as I said previously, you may wish to pause the video at this particular point. I've put together some sentence starters. Again, you'll be familiar with this from primary school. I've put some sentence starters together just to prompt you. Again, these aren't exhaustive. These are just some ideas. So if you sat there and you've got a little bit of writer's block, you're thinking, oh, I'm not quite sure how to start this, then this is where these sentence starters would come in handy. But you are more than welcome to disregard these entirely and come up with your own sentences. Don't feel duty bound to follow what I put on the screen here. These are just some ideas to help you. Now, we can't wait to meet you at Lostock Hall Academy. We're really, really excited, and we've put this project together for you to give you a little bit of focus, but also to help in the process of transitioning from primary to secondary school. It's a big jump, and it's a big jump at the best of times, and sad to say, these aren't the best of times. So we want to make sure we get to know you. We're not going to let the current situation stop us from getting to know you. It's really, really important to helping you settle into school. So just as a brief recap, what you'll be doing is using this video to write a letter to your form tutor. Remember, your form tutor is going to be so important to helping you settle at school. And you'll be including a reflection really on your time at primary school, a reflection on your time now during lockdown, and also thinking ahead to the future. I think a really important bit of thinking ahead to the future and what you hope to achieve. And you're going to be writing that up as a letter, and then bringing that with you when you start school with us in September. And and your form tutor is going to be able to read it. They're going to keep hold of it, and at the end of year 7, you can actually think, what have I achieved? What did I set out to achieve, and what did I actually achieve? And even better, we're going to keep it all the way through till year 11. Now that might seem like a lifetime away, but believe me, it flies by. So at the end of your time at secondary school, you'll be able to think back to this crucial moment, almost like a time capsule, and think, where was I when I started secondary school? And it's going to be a really, really fantastic thing to keep and look back on in the future, I'm sure. So as I say, we can't wait to meet you. We're really, really looking forward to you starting with us in September. I think this letter is going to be a great way of us getting to know you and understanding what makes you you, to re-quote Walt Whitman, to show how you contain multitudes and what makes you a really interesting, unique person. Okay? Thanks for watching, and we can't wait to see you in September.